Welcome to another edition of the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm your host, Rick Zamperin. If it's making news in Hamilton, Halton, and Niagara, across Canada, around the world, you will see it here on Newsmakers. Our guest today has entertained and inspired millions of people through her work in front of a television camera and behind the scenes. She is an award-winning Canadian actress, producer, and activist, and has her Order of Canada citation reads, she helped build a diverse screen industry and has left an indelible mark on Canadian and international entertainment. I'm very pleased to welcome to the Newsmakers podcast the legendary Tonya Williams. Ms. Williams, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You received the Luminary Award from the Toronto Film Critics Association in January. This summer, you were inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame and appointed to the Order of Canada. And in a couple of weeks from now, you will celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Reelworld Film Festival, which you founded in 2000. What a year it has been for you. Are you pinching yourself this year?
It is, no, I'm pinching myself, but it really feels completely unrealistic. It's been a crazy year. I'm really happy about it, but it's very surreal.
I want to go back to when it all began for you, and we're certainly going to talk about the festival and the Institute and the impact that it is making, but way back when, how did you get into acting? Did you have a bug for it? How did it all begin?
No, it was funny. Music had always been my passion, classical music. I played piano since I was 5 years old. And by the time I was 16, 17, I was thinking about going to York University because they had such an amazing music program. But I took this modeling course out of fun with some friends. We just decided this would be a fun thing to do. And the woman who ran the modeling course, Judy Welch, also had an agency and had said to my mother, do you mind if we send Tonya out for some TV commercials or catalog work? And my mom was like, no, as long as it doesn't affect with any of her schoolwork. And that was how I started. I did a few TV commercials. I remember it was like Wear a Mustache milk commercial was like a big one that I did. And I did catalog work for the Bay and Sears and, all those that are no longer around. That's how long it's been. And, I did not think of it as a career, to tell you the truth. I was doing it in the way that young people have a part-time job at other places and do things for fun. But I think it was after high school I decided to take a year off. I really wanted to make sure this is what I wanted to do, was the music. And in my year off, I started now doing small parts in some movies or TV shows. And I think it's sitting on those sets, talking to not just the actors, but the people behind the camera, was the first time I started going, oh, this is like, people do this for a living. This is like something that's a career. And after that year off, during the year, I applied to Ryerson at the time, which is now TMU, for their drama program. And that's really where it started for me. That was the first time studying seriously and understanding what this meant to be in this industry and of course to be an actor in it.
Once the light bulb went off and you thought, boy, I can make a career out of this, were there inspirations you were drawing from other actors and actresses on screen?
I can't say it was individual people, but I do remember feeling my whole life about the impact of watching things on screen. So even though I might not have known who the actors were, I do remember how I felt, especially as a Black woman, a Black little girl, seeing Black people on screen, how that made me feel, especially how they were depicted. Remember, I was born in 1958, so the 60s and 70s was when I was the most influenced by watching television. And there were very few Black people that were inspirational, like the characters, I mean. So I know that when I started, that was really important for me, that the characters that I would do or projects that I would be in would be representative of Black people that I knew in my life, who were professionals, who were successful, who were contributing to communities in very positive ways. I wasn't seeing that on screen, and I know that became a driving force for me.
My first recollection of you, and I did not know this until years later, was watching Polka Dot Door, one of my favorite shows growing up as a child. And then little did I know that Tonya Williams was one of the stars of the show. How did you get onto Polka Dot Door?
It was an audition. You just like, as actors, you go out on these auditions. But I had always said to my agents the kind of work I was trying to do. And at that time, because this was in the late 70s, early 80s, most of my agents were getting things like, oh, it was a role for a prostitute. It was a role for a drug addict living in the projects. And I would be like, no, I don't want to do that. And so when Polka Dot Door came up and they said there's this audition, I was like, yeah, because I'm so proud of that show. It meant a lot to me that I could be a Black person on a show that kids across Canada, some of them in communities where they'd never seen a Black person, were seeing for the first time, and it was something positive. And that really meant a lot to me. So people sometimes whisper it to me like, I saw you on Polka Dot. They say it in a way that maybe I'd be embarrassed about it.
Right.
But I am really proud of that show and the work that all of the actors did on that show.
Yeah, and you should be, because it impacted not only me, but I'm sure millions of other children watching that show day in and day out, or week in and week out. It was a great watch.
I love seeing people in their 40s coming up to me and going, I saw you, these, grown people. It's really wonderful.
So you're transitioning from music to acting in your early days. What were your parents' reaction? What did friends say about this?
Well, I don't remember friends saying anything because maybe I only listened to parents. But my father, he was a lawyer and then became a Supreme Court justice, he was horrified that his only child, his daughter, decided to be an actor. My father came up at a time when actresses were not positive things. They were considered loose and almost like prostitutes in the mind of someone like my father.
Right.
My mother, on the other hand, knew that I was always destined to do something artistic because school was not something I did well in, and school was not something I was ever interested in, other than the courses like music and English. Everything that I loved was in the arts. We had no drama program at my high school, so that's why I never even thought of doing it. We had no program. Mm-hmm. But I was always very charismatic child, always on stage. I did ballet as well from the age of 3. So I had performed on stages, and it was all fun to me. But honestly, it wasn't until going to Ryerson, which is why it shaped me in the discipline of the work that I do. I understood the hard work of it in a way that I can't say I never thought of it in acting that way, but in music and ballet, discipline and hard work is just the way, is just part of it. Practicing every single day, rehearsing all the time, then performances, and making things look effortless when they were really hard to do was part of the training as well. So I think I sort of if that's a word, glided into it quite easily, because the hard work part didn't scare me. It was enjoyable. I love digging in to something. I love sinking my teeth into something and just learning sort of everything about it.
Yeah. You not only dug in, but you created a memorable character on Young and the Restless for 2 decades. What was that like? And what was that process like of literally day in and day out filming a new episode?
Well, I loved it. Now, when I went to Los Angeles, you'll have to remember, agents in Los Angeles don't encourage their talent to be on soap operas. Okay. That is not where the money is, where they're concerned. And right when I got to LA, which was the end of the 80s, it was sitcoms. They were really huge. And I had done sitcoms in Canada, so they thought that was where I wanted to go. And that's where the money was. But always Black people, being the comic, being the jokester, it was not really something that I wanted to do. Not that I'm criticizing anybody that has done it, because it was fun. But I did not see Black people in dramatic roles, in romantic roles. I thought there was a missing expanse that needed to happen with characters on screen. So when the audition of Young and the Restless came up, the first time, and I don't know if you know it, but I've said it a few times, which is the character was Drusilla, and I did not want to go for that role at all because it was everything that I had said no to in the past. But I remember it was a junior agent that said, well, if you're interested in doing this kind of dramatic work, at least you should go on this because the casting directors will see you and they may remember you for something else. And what I remember best about the audition when I went for Drusilla is I knew what they wanted. I knew this kind of street lingo and illiterate, person living on the street, but I didn't play it that way. And in fact, I'm always stubborn that way. It's not that I can't play things a certain way. It's that if I don't really want to do it, I don't do it that way. So I played that character very much in the way I'm talking to you right now, which I knew was totally not what they wanted. So when my agents had called me back a few days later and said, you have a callback, I was like, for what? And they were like, this role. And for Young and the Restless, I was like, it can't possibly be for that role. And they were like, no, this is a different role. This character's called Olivia. She's a doctor. And I was like, I was thinking in my head, why didn't they call me for this role before? But years later doing the show, Bill Bell, we were at one of the functions together, and he'd said, did I ever tell you about, how I came up with the character of Olivia? And he told me that it was watching me do Drusilla that made him, at that moment, realize that what would be really interesting is a character like Olivia, that these two sisters who could seem so completely opposite, it was really the driving force of where that character came from. So I love that. But going back to your question, I love the speed of soap operas. It's either something you love or you don't love. I love learning something really quickly. I love delivering it. And then I love forgetting about it almost immediately.
Right.
Whereas with sitcoms, you learn things on the Monday, you rehearse the same thing on the Tuesday, you rehearse it again on the Wednesday, you do it for the writers on the Thursday, changes are made, you do it for the live audience twice because you shoot 2 shows on the Friday, of which they edit into one show. And I just found that torturous after a while. And then if you're in a play, but what's great is if you're in a play and you love it, it is like it's fresh every single night. I haven't found that for me. It does not feel that way, even though it should feel that way. But I just love the speed of script is coming at you. You're knocking out that script, you're shooting and you're moving on. And there are definitely actors who hate that speed, but for me, it was just something I love to do. But it was hard work because when you think that a 90-minute movie is often shot over a couple of months and then the editing happens, whereas we shot 60 minutes a day. So you have to understand the speed of that. And it's not just the acting. Editing is literally happening as you are acting. They're editing at the same time.
Wow.
There's someone in a music booth that's mixing the music while you're doing the scene live. Lots of these things are happening at the same time so that a show can be churned out, one show a day.
As I mentioned, nearly 2 decades. I think it's 19 years that you played that part. Did it seem like that long?
It did not, because first of all, I really enjoyed the actors I was working with. I mean, there was a moment when it was Malcolm character. I was thinking of his real name, Shamar, but the Malcolm character was on the it's so terrible. I can't remember the character names, but there was a group with Victoria Rowell was on it. It was myself. It was Christophe St. John. It was, and it was almost like when you see episodes of Friends. It was like those actors came together and did something. We did something really special and dynamic. And so when Vicky was off the show, and then when Shamar left the show, it changed the dynamic. And so for me, it wasn't the fun and the impact it was in those particular years, because we were doing something so different, so unique. There had not been a Black family. It wasn't just that it was one character, it was this entire family, and how we were integrated into the whole show and all the different characters. There hadn't been nothing like that. And I can tell you in the beginning, the show didn't want to show us, but I found out about the really negative fan mail. There was positive fan mail. They sent us that, but there was a lot of racists, out there who said, get those N people off the air, and I'm not going to watch your show if you keep these Black people on here. But the show just stuck to what they knew was the future. And I think Bill Bell learned a lot himself because, all the writers were white on the show when we started. And you have to remember there was a character called Kong. Let's remember that. There was Aunt Mamie, which was spelt basically Mammy. So it was a learning curve for them as well, that they developed these characters to be lovable. To be beloved is what I should say, right, by a wider audience. We weren't just beloved by the Black audience. We were beloved by people who originally thought it was strange and weird and that we shouldn't be on their show. Slowly melted. And that's the power of our screen industry. That's something that I absolutely love, is how we can change the way people think about other people. And that's what I still love about the screen industry.
When did you find out about the negative letters? And did that, was that surprising? Was that hurtful? Did you feel sorry for them? Did that entice you to, work harder?
No, I feel I worked the same. I wasn't surprised. Probably I was surprised before when I didn't see the mail. So, right. How is everyone accepting this? I can't remember when I first heard about it. I think it was someone working in the office, but on a lower level, who we all got to be friends with, who was like, oh my God, you should see some of the mail that comes in. We're like, what? So I think, I'm sure they did something they weren't supposed to do, but we knew them so well. But it does not, the way my parents came up in an era where that was normal for them. And my father becoming a lawyer, someone who was born in 1928, going to law school in the 40s, basically, he faced a lot. My mother going off to become a nurse in England, because that's where people from Jamaica trained. They went to England. So they not only faced racism, but they waited quite a while before they got married, and then before they had me. They raised me to be prepared for that. You hear of parents now having to talk with their young Black sons or even daughters about what to do if police encounter you. It was kind of the same thing, but it was more around racism. It was my parents reminding me that this is not something to discourage me. This is just the way the world is. And I would have to work 200% harder to be at the exact same level as someone who is white doing 100%. Right. So they reinforced with me that my friends that I went to school with, even if they were 100% perfect, I had to be 200% to be at the exact same level. It's something that I think about, especially right now when people talk so much about EDI and diversity and affirmative action, but they say it in a way, and I hear it all the time, especially coming out of the States and all the reports you hear, they say it in a way that makes it seem like all Black people, all people of color, all Indigenous people, we are not as intelligent. We are not as capable. And so these programs are only there to help the lesser intelligent and the lesser capable, which is funny to me because it's the opposite. They don't understand. It seems that for my father to become a lawyer was not because someone was like, yes, let's open the door and have this Black man become a lawyer. He had to be perfection. My mother to become a nurse you had to work harder. You had to be more exceptional. And you don't see that people, Black people and people of color weren't complaining about the fact that they had to be 200% to get the job that someone who is only 60% capable but white was able to get. Now, for some reason, the rhetoric is about, oh, all these people are taking white jobs because the white people are really capable and the people of color and the Black people, they're incapable of being so capable. I would say that's a huge step backwards in our culture and our community right now. something I just never thought would be the day. I just never thought somebody would think that. I mean, it's almost laughable that who's going to give someone black or a person of color, who's going to give them a job when they're not capable? Like, it's
right.
You have to be overqualified to get those jobs, not that you're not capable.
Yeah.
Affirmative action and diversity really only came out of the fact that these overqualified black people and people of color, overqualified, couldn't get jobs. So affirmative action made it that bosses had to judge them on the same platform as they judged the white people they were hiring. But that seems to be lost in the rhetoric that I hear now.
Yeah, well said. 2000. Let's go back to the year 2000. It's an epic year because you launched the Reelworld Institute. You have a film festival. It's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. What was the genesis? Where'd you get this idea, and why was it so important to you?
Well, first of all, I love film festivals. I actually found, I'm a hoarder, so I found tickets from 1977, Festival of Festivals. I'm in high school. I was I must have been walking past the Uptown Cinema, saw that some foreign film, which I loved, was playing, bought a ticket and went in, not realizing I was at what was the Toronto International Film Festival. So I'd been going to those kind of things for a really long time. And when I started working as an actor, I did a lot of sort of outspoken work in ACTRA for casting directors to start casting colorblind. I was part of a lot of roundtable groups talking about changes that need to be made in the industry. This is all before I started Reelworld. So I think being in the States and watching how the communities came together through the NAACP, through their image awards that they created, through them creating their own things because so many doors were closed to those communities, I think it inspired me. I'm also going to Sundance Film Festival, seeing what Robert Redford, one individual could do, all that was huge inspiration for me. So I'd always wanted to do something in Canada, and Reelworld seemed like a good start because I noticed a trend in Canada with a lot of the festivals. When they put works of Black or brown people in, they tended to get that work internationally. So they had white Canadian filmmakers, but the Black filmmakers in their festivals tend to come from countries outside of Canada, which I was shocked about. So those Canadians who were Black, who were Indigenous, who were Asian, who were South Asian, they were not often able to get into the film festivals in Canada. And when you go to apply for a grant or, try to get funding, sometimes those questions were, what film festivals have you screened in? So that was a barrier. Mm-hmm. Or they would say, what awards have you won at these festivals? Well, if you can't even get into the festivals, you don't even have an opportunity to win an award. So when I started Reelworld, that was a part of it as well. Starting with the film festival, lots of people were now able to say, we screened at this festival. Then they were able to say, we won an award at this festival. And they were able to apply for funding. So it helped them move forward. And I think after I did the festival, I then realized that other programs needed to happen. I wouldn't be able to sustain the company financially just focusing on a film festival. So then we started year-round programs. And we started with the Emerging 20 program. And then after George Floyd in 2020, I think that's the first time. I'd already been running Reelworld for 20 years, but it was the first time a lot of our funders were, Tonya, tell me again exactly what Reelworld is doing. And they really wanted now to support. And so our funding went up. And as that funding went up, and this was from sponsors and government funders, I was able to expand programming. So it was the producer program, and I created the Access Reelworld database because people were saying to me, we want to hire more diversity, but we don't know where they are. That was a refrain I'd heard my whole life. We'd hire more people, but we don't know where they are. So then I created a database where anyone could go on for free and see talent that was in, and not just writers and actors and directors and producers. We had 100 professions there. So it was from electrical to carpentry to, drivers in transport to like all the different people who work in every level of this industry. So that was a part of it. And we're just constantly evolving and growing as the industry changes. What's the big change right now is not so much the focus of creating Canadian content just for Canadian audiences, but we need to we need Canadian content for world audiences. And when you think of the world stage, that is not just white people. There's a lot of what we call the global majority now, made up of Black people and Asian people and South Asian people, and they want to see themselves reflected on screen. So it's incumbent on Canadians who make content to think about that when they're thinking about the audience internationally. So that's really the genesis. I feel like the genesis has always been the same, but Reelworld was a way for me to express it in a different way. But I feel the fight has always been the same for me. The drive has always been the same from a small person, which is changing public opinion, expanding the concept of what people think these communities are or what they do, and understanding that we're all human beings at the end of the day, exactly the same, working as hard and trying to succeed. And especially in our industry, it's a difficult industry. Even when everything is in your favor, it's a difficult industry.
There is, as you know, a lot of talk about U.S. tariffs and their impact on Canadian businesses. The president of the United States recently mused about, 100% tariff on movies and TV shows that are not made in America. Your response to that?
Probably not the response people are going to want to hear, because it's something I've been talking about for a long time. We need not to be reliant on international countries for our bread and butter. We need to make a stronger Canadian industry here so that whether the president or whoever wants to say that, so that if they take their work out of Canada, we need to have our own industry here and make it stronger. I've been very passionate about, we need a Canadian star system. We need actors that other countries worldwide want to hire. We have great actors here. And we need a Canadian audience supporting Canadian content. I would say we are one of the only countries in the world that supports our own Canadian content so little. Drives me crazy. Nigeria is huge about their Nigerian stars and the content. Jamaica, if they make one movie in 10 years, they're still celebrating it, and people will watch it over and over and over. I want us as Canadians to get very passionate about the Canadian talent that's here, the actors that are here, the content that's on your television. I can't tell you how many people I bump into and I ask them if they've seen this kind of show or that kind of show, and they're like, no, they haven't watched it. So if Canadians want to keep supporting American shows, and if they want to keep supporting shows from other countries but not support their own shows, then we're going to reap what we sow. So the only way for us to not care about those countries that choose not to shoot in Canada is for us to increase our own capacity here in Canada for our own producers, for our own directors, for our own actors. We can be making more content. That's what I hope. Let America be buying our content. I mean, they are right now. Yeah. There's a lot of Canadian shows, actually, from Murdoch Mysteries to Heartland, that do very well in the States. Let's make sure we get our own programming out to all kinds of countries.
We have a few minutes left, and I do want to focus a little more on the film festival that's coming up in Toronto in a couple of weeks' time. What are you most excited about? What are you recommending we watch?
There are so many. Well, first of all, every single film is a Canadian film in our festival. And the festival kicks off. We do a summit, actually, on the 14th and 15th. And this is our third year doing the summit, because it became very big that people wanted to learn more about our Canadian industry. And so the summit is a big part of that. And then the film festival, kicks off with our opening night on the 16th. The films run through the 17th, 18th, 19th. We really encourage people to go to the website, reelworld.ca, where you can read all about the films and the directors, and really come out and support Canadian content and the talent that makes it. That's all every filmmaker wants to do. They want to be at a festival, they want to stand up on stage, and they want to see a full audience out there cheering them on, because they need that kind of support. And it's not just about government giving money or sponsors giving money. It's about each and every Canadian going in, buying a ticket, and sitting in a cinema and cheering on your talent. They need that kind of support.
Absolutely. And tickets are available on the website.
Tickets are available on the website, passes for the summit and tickets for the films, and everything is laid out there. I'm very proud of the team, the staff at Reelworld, who've just done an amazing job just getting everything ready.
It's going to be a phenomenal show. I know it, because Canadian artists and actors and producers and directors and on are going to be featured at what is going to be the 25th anniversary. Congratulations on that. Best of luck with the festival, the summit, the Institute going forward. Here's to another 25 years and beyond. Tonya, thank you so much for the time this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting us.
That's Tonya Williams, the legendary actor, producer, activist, and thank you for checking out the Newsmakers podcast. And a huge thanks to the all-star cast behind the scenes as well. If you like today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave a comment as well. Catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.